The JEDO Board of Directors meeting will come to order. Welcome, everyone. Look forward to having you here this evening. I hope the meeting will be helpful and important and interesting to you. First, we will go with roll call.
County Commissioners Shirley Bueller. Here. Kevin Cook.
Here.
Bob Archer.
Here.
City of Topeka Governing Body, Mayor Larry Wolgass.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Hiller. Here. Councilmember Sandra Clear. Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz. Tony Emerson.
Here.
Michelle De La Isla. Here. Brendan Jensen. Elaine Schwartz. Deputy Mayor Jeff Cohen.
Here.
Richard Harmon.
And for the audience, this is a slightly different measure. We included all board members in the roll call rather than just the voting members as we've done in the past. As you know, there are 7 voting members on the board. Next is the action item 3 is the approval of the September 13 minutes. Board members, do you have any changes that you wish to make with those? Let's see. Councilwoman De La Isla. Motion to approve the minutes as presented. Commissioner Bueller seconds. That is an action item. We have no one who is signed to speak for that, so we will proceed to vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
We have 7 yes.
7 having voted yes, the minutes are approved. We go to action item 4, approval of the Project Morris contract, and that will be Molly Howie.
Good evening. So tonight's an exciting night because you get to finally meet Project Morris. I'll introduce them a little bit later on, but just to remind you, the funding for this project was approved in May, and this company is committed to growing in the Shawnee County area. Project Morris is moving from an outside of Shawnee County location in Perry, and the company is growing to add 45 jobs with an average wage of $40,000, and that more than doubles their head count. So here's just a reminder of the maximum incentive of $180,000, and that's based solely on the new jobs and $2 million in capital investment. This is performance-based, as always. The impact to our community for this project is a $15 million economic impact for the first year, and then $12 million for each subsequent year. So for a 5-year period, this is a $63 million economic impact. Well, and with that, that hits kind of the project specs. And
so we approved this
Yes.
in general in the last meeting. Now we have the actual contract that we're approving tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
And so at this time, I'd like to call up Todd Harrington, President of Industrial Maintenance, Inc., otherwise known as IMI, and he will address the board and answer any questions that you all have.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Would you like to just describe a little bit about your company and what it does and the process of moving here into Topeka?
Industrial maintenance has several different divisions. We do water and wastewater work. We do work with Schmuckers on their processing side. We've worked with Hills. We've worked with a lot of local companies that are here. Our biggest reason for moving is our fabrication side with package handling equipment. We design and fabricate and install distribution warehouses for UPS, mainly is one of our biggest clients. And we outgrew our facility in Perry. It was 23,000, I think, square feet, and our new facility is 65,000, so we're hoping to be able to stay there for a while, and we truly appreciate all the help you guys have given us so far.
Can you describe the location?
It is the old Payless Cashways building. A lot of us will remember that. It was pro-build when we bought it. I think it had been empty for about maybe a year and a half. I'm not positive of that, but obviously when we moved in, we're not retail and we're not lumber, so there was a lot of renovations that had to happen, but the building size and location were perfect for what we're doing.
Is there any questions of the board members? Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Then we have before us an action item.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would move to approve the action item.
Commissioner Cook moves to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Bueller seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
We
Motion
have
carried.
7 yes.
7 having voted yes, the item is approved. And what we like to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we stop for a minute and take a picture, take a photo with our new company. So board members, if you quickly recess down here in front.
Green type and red.
That's true. That's true. Me and my twin brother. Separate by one.
Yeah, one row in the back and then one row up front. Should I get everybody here? All right. 1, 2, yeah. Say welcome to Topeka. All right. Thank you. One more.
Thank you. Thank you.
We go to item 5, if the clerk would read.
Approval of Project LEAF contract.
All right, this is Molly, excuse me, it's Jackie. This again is what we had approved in the past, but tonight we are actually approving the contract.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. So it's basically similar to the last project we just looked at in terms of the process. So this was Project LEAF, which is Premier Advisory Group, and that's the umbrella company for Motovike Films, Bajillion Ad Agency, and Action Coach Business Coaching. So just to give you a recap so you can recall, they're looking at a $2.4 million investment. 1.6 of that is in revitalizing a downtown building, and $800,000 of that is purchasing new equipment. At the time that we were approving this back in September, they had 17 employees, and over the next 5 years, they're looking at adding 45 new jobs at an average salary of $52,000. And again, this is going to be downtown, real kind of creative type jobs that they're going to be bringing into our community. Just remember what was approved back in September is the funding approval of incentives up to a maximum of $225,000. That was based just on the new jobs that are going to be created. And this is performance-based, so they will not receive any of those incentives until such time that those jobs are in place. And based on those jobs with that average salary of $52,000 a year, that creates a $16 million reoccurring annual impact on our economy. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have about this project.
Are there any questions about the contract? Seeing none, your pleasure. Commissioner Archer moves to approve the contract. Councilwoman De La Isla seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
7 yes.
7 having voted yes, the item is approved. We go to item 6, if the clerk would read.
6 is presentations. The first presentation is Go Topeka Quarterly Report.
And Matt Varnick is going to lead.
So I'll kick it off and I'll turn it over to the team. Excuse my voice, I'm actually losing it. This might be the last report I do for a day or two. But I did want to take just a moment and let you know that tonight we're going to be pretty rapid fire. So you'll see the team start lining up behind me. We're going to try to get through this as fast as we possibly can, but at the same time give you a pretty good update. I do want to mention a couple things specifically. First and foremost is I want to talk to you about Payless. We are still in the process of feverishly trying to make a good solid contact with Payless. Today, Jackie on our team actually hand-delivered a letter to the interim CEO of Payless that was signed by Commissioner Archer, Mayor Walgast, Secretary of Commerce Jordan, and myself. Just really telling them how anxious we are to meet with them and to help retain as many jobs as we possibly can in this community. I wish there was more for me to tell you, but that is really all I have to report on that at this time. The other thing I want to mention to you is that we're paying very close attention right now to retail and what's happening in retail in this world. We're also watching very closely our mall. Our mall is very important to us. I've been trying to share as many educational articles and news articles I can about what's going on with malls across the country. And so we're paying very close attention to what's going on with our mall and are developing a future retail strategy. One other thing to mention is that in January, we will ask several of you to participate in a site visit that we're receiving from the International Economic Development Council. We have put ourselves through a very rigorous process called AEDO, which is Accredited Economic Development Organization. We are pleased to tell you that we have passed the first several tests, and now we have earned the right to receive an actual site visit, and we will have some economic development professionals on site in January. Our fingers are crossed. This is a very rigorous process, as I say, but we're pretty excited to get to the point that we are at. We also believe that if we, for some reason, weren't able to attain the accreditation this go-around, that we would be poised to get the accreditation in the next go-around. I would like to say that if we receive this accreditation, that we will be the first economic development organization in the state of Kansas, the first and only economic development organization in the state of Kansas with accreditation. I'd like to thank Jackie for leading that process for us. I just want to mention a little bit about 2017. First of all, I can't believe it's December. That blows me away a little bit. 2017 was quite the busy year. I would just like to take you back to April, and if you remember what we were working on in April, and that was that we were under duress and we were under threat of potentially losing 1,600 jobs from a hospital. That seems like it was a long, long time ago, but it was just in April. So I would like to say that this year has gone by fast. We've had our wins, we've had some losses, but I do want to thank especially those of you who put up with us during that month and would take my phone calls and spent time with me. That was a pretty darn big win. Saves or wins, and that was a pretty big win for our community. I would say 2017 was a year of we bit off more than we could chew, but the timing was right. And there wasn't a better year to do the things that we did. Creating the Momentum 2022 strategy. Molly would tell you that a report just came out from IEDC yesterday saying that communities that create regional strategies are the ones that are going to succeed in economic development in the future. Along with that strategy, going out and doing private fundraising from the private sector and asking them to join with JEDO to invest in economic development, I'm pleased to report that as of today, we've raised approximately $5 million towards our $6.3 million goal. The creation of the Greater Topeka Partnership, which we've talked to you quite a bit about, but just the notion that there's going to be more collaboration between our economic development entities going forward. And so it has been a really busy year, a good year, and like I said, the timing was right, and we do have some pretty incredible momentum. I do want to thank you, our elected leaders. I want to thank you, first of all, for agreeing to serve on this JEDO board and taking on that extra duty. Councilwoman Hiller, thank you for being here. I know you're not a voting member, but I appreciate how much you care. I just want to thank you for letting us pester you, having those meetings with us and taking those calls, and I really appreciate the leadership and the feedback that you all give to us. I also want to thank our volunteer leaders for the incredible work that they do. And then before they come up, I really want to give a big shout out to our staff. Both the ones that you're going to hear from tonight, the ones that are in the crowd, in the audience tonight, and the ones that couldn't be here. This year of biting off more than we can chew, they've handled it like champs, and I would just say I've never been so proud of a professional staff and the efforts that they put forward, and they definitely care about this community and they care about this economy. So with that, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to turn it over to Molly, and like I said, they're going to be rapid fire, and they're going to all be a little bit more brief than I was. So Molly, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we have the quarterly report is underway, new business attraction. It's Molly Howey.
Well, thank you. First, I'll talk about kind of a combined pipeline of new business and existing business. You'll see here it's about a 2/3, 1/3 split with new business versus existing business. we're still averaging around $40,000 for the average wage for the projects in our pipeline. And these numbers differ a little bit from what's in your packet, just because, you know, time has gone on and we don't stop once that quarterly report's been put in your hands. So I wanted to give you the most up-to-date numbers that we have. So, and I guess Jackie's going to trump me later because she's got another project to add to her numbers that is not reflected here. So that's just the combined pipeline, and I'll go into new business specifically. So again, these are new numbers since your quarterly report. The consultant interactions number that you see there is very important. For new business specifically, we're working on a couple of very large projects that we've talked about in the past that we're still on the short list for. And then, of course, there are still those mid-size, more typical size projects that continue to flow in. But relationship building is becoming more and more important, as there are stats that come into the site selection criteria that we can't immediately affect, things like unemployment rate, the number of folks that are available in a certain trade, crime, the distance we are from a major airport. So some of those things are looked at before we even get to talk to a prospect. So this is where the relationship building really comes into play, because we need to tell the story that's not being told by the data. The things that we're doing with Washburn Tech, the things that we're doing in our high schools to build that manufacturing pipeline, and the work that's going on with Momentum 2022. Matt alluded to it a little bit with that study that I got yesterday, and really the crux of that article was that communities that are showing they have a community-wide strategy for economic development and are able to work collaboratively, that is another site selection factor that comes into play that really shows that once a company is here, that the community is going to continue to support them and be progressive with economic development initiatives. So that things like Momentum 2022 are piquing the interest of site selectors. And with that, I will toss it over to Jackie for existing and less.
What are the top reasons on site selection?
They vary a little bit from year to year, so there's an annual survey. But right now, the top three are workforce availability, the cost of doing business in the tax environment, and then quality of life. Quality of life is number 3 right now. It has been, I think when I started here, it wasn't even in the top 10. So that's really a shift in, I think it's reflective of workforce development activities and the way that communities are fighting for talent right now.
Okay. Quick questions?
Anything else?
We move on? All right.
Thank you.
EMBD, Glenda. I'm sorry, Jackie.
No problem. No worries. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the project pipeline that we have going on. So you'll see these are numbers that are to date, except for they're not updated from 7 hours ago. So I've had 2 new projects since we've last met. And as I said, about 7 hours ago, I had a phone call that I think I've got a third one that will be on the agenda as well. So Project Smiles is a really exciting, it's a local company. They're looking to take the next step. And then Project Thunder is also an exciting one. So it's distribution, but if we can make this happen, we think it's going to lead to a second phase of that as well. So kind of be looking for those. We think they'll keep moving. One of them's moving pretty hot and heavy. So hopefully in early 2018, we'll see something on that. We've had 99 business interactions and 53 on-site business visits with our businesses that are here in the community. So as Matt alluded to, we've had kind of a couple scary things that have happened this year, working with the Payless situation, with the hospital. But I think it's interesting to look at these numbers because it shows that existing businesses really contribute a lot to our community. Depending on the stats that you look at, they say anywhere between 60 and 80% of a community's new jobs and new capital investment come from the companies that are already here, not the ones that are moving into the community. So that's a big number to think about. And then I wanted to talk about just 2 events that have occurred since we've last met. We've had the third annual Financial Services Summit. This is an event that we partner with the Insurance Commission and with Security Benefit and the Department of Commerce. So this year we had a record 180 people register for that. We had a lot of good responses, so we're looking to take that to the next level. We've already established a date for next October for that event, and it's going to be held at Security Benefit. And then I also held a manufacturing roundtable. So this was for our plant managers for manufacturing as well as distribution centers here in the community. And we just sat around, had lunch. I had one of our manufacturers actually hosted, and they gave us a tour of their plant. And what I think is really great about that is the next day I got a phone call from one of the attendees and said, hey, can I get Peter's contact information at HF Mixing? When he gave us that plant tour, he talked about some equipment that he had sitting outside that they could no longer use and they weren't sure what to do with. We think that we might be able to purchase that from him or take it off his hands and utilize that at our facility. So I think that's really important to note that it's not just about providing incentives for these companies, but what other value add can we have? And just making that connection is really one of those pieces of what we try to do in terms of business retention. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on, now, EMBD, Glenda Washington.
So good evening, everyone. We just want to tell you how excited we are about what's happening in the entrepreneurial community. There is so much going on, and we are glad to be a part of it. For today, I'm just going to, what you have before you probably is dated. Again, as Jackie said, everything is moving so fast. It's the end of the year, and everybody's trying to get their incentives in. So currently, as of today, we have 74 incentives, but we have a pipeline of about 50. So we're trying to get those kind of completed before the end of the year. 47 businesses have received incentives. And just so you know how this works, I might be one business, but I am eligible for all 4 incentives. So that's how the numbers are a little bit funny looking. So today we've issued 22,000 incentives. That's just for this year. 98 full-time jobs have been impacted or retained or have been created, and 115 part-time jobs have been either retained or created as a result of this. So this program is just not us issuing out incentives. It's about job creation, and it's really shown itself well. We are so excited that this program, I received emails and letters and cards all the time, and I received an email today from a gentleman that said that he and his wife are new business owners, and they are really glad that they moved to Topeka because of this incentive and how it's helped them. And so when we stand before you next month, we will, the next time we stand before you, we will show you a couple of videos of individuals that have received incentives and how it's impacted them, just so you'll know. Mid-America, the Mid-America Angels, Bob Hapney was the individual that brought this to our attention, and so we have an angel investment group in the community. They currently are part of a bigger group, though, like I told you before, out of St. Joe and Manhattan, and they have 160 investors, 28 angel investors out of Topeka. Businesses that have pitched them are about 17, totaling about $5 million. But what we have to do is we're going to have to work a little bit harder, make sure that we get some of those businesses that are pitching to them to be Topeka-based businesses. So we're working on that. We also want more women to become angel investors, and we'll be working on that as an initiative next year. Now I want to, you heard me talk about this ghost person, and it's our PTAC director. She does exist. So I want to introduce you tonight to Christy Dunn. Christy, come on up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christy Dunn. I'm originally from Kansas. I've been working in the procurement world for about 18 years. I have done work with the National Guard, with commercial entities on the contracting side, and I've also done overseas work as well, which was very, very fascinating. My last contract work was working as a subcontractor for a NASA contract. I have been doing this work extensively. It's very nice to be on this side of the table where I'm helping small businesses get into the field. If you're not familiar, PTAC stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And to date, we have 98 active clients. As you can see on the screen there, of those, 63 of them are new. I started in June. Of those, 47 are local to Shawnee County. They have generated $12.5 million for our region. And of those, 2.8 just for Shawnee County. Based on the investment that you guys made back when this program was started, initiated by Glenda, that's $183 return on investment for every dollar you've invested. I'm open to any questions if you have any.
And so you tell us just very simply what you do.
I help small businesses do work with the federal government. So
All
if
right.
you would like to bid on a federal job, I'm the person you come and see. I help with their getting their DUNS number, their SAMS registration, going through the bid solicitation process, putting together their bid, reviewing their bid, and then award phase as well.
So it's all the business our federal government does, you're helping small business people here get a part of that.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we only expect the numbers to grow from here.
Okay. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Now, the other part is, you might have heard or you might not have heard about BAFTech. And BAFTech is a task force that was put together as a result of individuals knowing and wanting to move us into the innovation age, meaning our businesses here would have to kind of catch up with what was going on around us. So we looked at where we sat in the animal health care corridor and how we could position ourselves to be a part of that bio, agri, animal health, and financial realm. We created a task force that took a closer look at us and looked at infrastructure and all those kinds of things. And then we asked, well, if we brought an animal health care business to our community, what would be the average wage or salary? So $75,000 a year is that average salary. And wouldn't that make a strong impact on our community? So we entered into an agreement with a company called Think Big Partners. We asked them to take an even closer look at us. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Hahn to come up and talk a little bit about what we're doing now, what our next steps are. Dr. Kevin Hahn.
Good evening. Hello. A number of the people on the Science and Technology Committee and this review committee are in the audience today, and I want to give you just a brief review of some of the presentations we heard yesterday by Think Big. But first of all, realize that the animal health industry is about a $60 billion industry, and about 90% of that has activity in the Midwest, and most of that's centered here in the animal health corridor. And one of the things we asked Think Big to look at was that we know there's quite a bit of animal health industry in Manhattan and growth in Manhattan, as well as Lawrence and Kansas City. What about Topeka? So we asked them to take a look at and kind of do a landscape analysis of what were some of the technologies in Topeka and what would be good for an innovation-driven space, maybe even a common space for entrepreneurs that could be innovation-driven and draw small businesses and even large businesses to Topeka. And I want to touch on 5 areas that they brought to our attention that I think is somewhat obvious to us, but it's good to have somebody look at it and give us that attention. And so one of the things they looked at were the growth areas that are in the areas surrounding Topeka, and they identified 5 growth sectors of interest. Obviously, animal health and the One Health biotech industry, looking at the human health and animal health connection. And so they saw that as a very strong positive for our community. They also looked at financial technology. And while animal health technology and the fuzzy cat and the warm-hearted dog are nice, there are people that run small businesses like myself that are there to look at the financial aspect of the animal health industry. So financial technology was another area of interest to them. But they also recognize that we're the state capital, and that civic and governmental technology can play a good role or a strong role in developing innovation in small businesses to Topeka. They also looked at the food service and restaurant industry, and finally looked at what's called the service provider industry. And these 5 technology areas they thought were very unique and strategic for the city of Topeka. And the second point they made was that we're rich in local and community and potentially global partners. So think about the strong entities we have, or the anchors we have in this community, like Stormont Vale, like the St. Francis Initiative, looking at the Washburn University, looking at Westar Energy. But they said we're also very close to some regional cities like Lincoln, Nebraska, Omaha, Wichita, et cetera, that could attract businesses or attract some of their strengths to a central area like Topeka. So as we talked about the strategic strengths and the rich and local community puzzle partners, we started getting into a discussion about what does entrepreneurship look like. And so if we were to have a common space or an innovation-driven workspace in Topeka, they saw these kinds of businesses being a participant in that area. They looked at entrepreneurial startups, freelance or independent workers, small businesses with less than 100 employees, maybe some small businesses that would be involved in the food and beverage industry. The thing that captured my attention the most out of this discussion was that when we started challenging them, what was the definition of an entrepreneur, they said an entrepreneur was somebody that is probably in their mid to late 40s. They've been through a number of small business experiences. You know, you've heard the phrase, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And so a number of them have had their successes and their failures. And while we heard that, and I see a lot of head shaking that you understand that it's possible a small business entrepreneur, we want to drive that next generation entrepreneur. And so one of the things that drove me to move to Topeka and why I love living in Topeka is that we have a substantial amount of intellectual property sitting around us, and that is our middle school and high school students, and looking at how we can encourage them to be thinkers and critical movers and shakers in our community. And so I think one of the things that Think Big touched on, which was very positive, is they touched on the strengths that we know are in our community. One of the things that I think we have to look back on the report and maybe think about more critically is, you know, how do we build that intellectual property within our community from our youth to get them to retain and stay in Topeka and grow small businesses in Topeka. So the last part I want to talk about as far as what they touched on was how do we think about an innovation space? You know, what does it look like and how do we make it grow and how do we bring the innovation to life in Topeka? And they presented us two possible models to look at. One is what we call the hospitality model. And I think we're very familiar with that, and that's where you have a common space where there's, you know, coffee and beverages, and there's, you know, a desk that you can rent or a conference room that you can, you know, lease for a week or a day or an hour, whatever it may be. But it's a hospitality model, and you create a vibrant community where you can have lectures and talks, and you invite people to share common themes. The other one's called the collaborative model. And the collaborative model is where you actually begin to have an anchor. Let's say that you have a West Star and a Hills and a Stormont and some other entities where they actually physically have space in that common space so that their entrepreneurs are there available for other small entrepreneurs. And so, again, sorry for taking too much of your time, but it was a very lengthy presentation. It was a very long review of what's good and strong about Topeka and some of the challenges we face, some of the cultural challenges we face. And so the committee that is taking on this task is meeting, some of us are meeting tomorrow, some of us are meeting right after the first of the year to take a deeper dive into their analysis, challenge them with some additional questions, and definitely look at what is the possibility of an innovation-driven cultural shared workspace in Topeka, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
You mentioned that some of your people are here with you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to have them stand?
Yes. Anybody involved in our science and technology workshop, they were there? And Nick was there? Bob? Carl? Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking an opportunity to listen to us and see what we're doing with what you've given us responsibility for. So we're very, very happy to answer any questions at this time.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you
Seeing
so
none,
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now to workforce education, Barbara Stapleton, and I think Gabe is going to be joining.
Good evening. We have a lot of momentum in workforce and education as well. First of all, I wanted to share with you about Included, our initiative there. We had the opportunity to hear from Major Gary Richardson during our Diversity and Inclusion Breakfast in November. He's an award-winning equal opportunity expert, and he serves the Air National Guard as a liaison and trainer for human relations and diversity, as well as being the author of Beyond Demographics, The Truth About Diversity. We also hosted our final HR breakout for the year last month with over 40 attendees. This was a resource opportunity for human resource managers and recruitment managers. During the event, they heard resources and information about Forge Young Professionals, Top City Interns program, as well as hearing from Cody Foster about several quality of life and quality of place initiatives as they support and relate to organizations' talent recruitment efforts and their attraction efforts. We also continue to offer the JEDO scholarships this year for Washburn Tech students. These scholarships that are awarded are in high demand fields from programs like practical nursing to diesel technology, and the scholarships impacted 92 students' lives over the course of the spring and the fall semester, helping them grow our workforce, or establish our workforce, and support those students to earn certificates in those programs. We've also continued our partnership with TRM Ministries, their CARE program, through the workforce support and training that they do and offering those bus passes. It supported 102 individuals this year in getting job opportunities and initial interviews and those types of things. The other thing that I want to share with you about is the success of Top City Interns. That's actually something that Gabe will share more, but with that success, we're excited to introduce Top City Student Teachers. So there'll be two components. There'll be Top City Teachers in the fall, but with Top City Student Teachers, we're partnering with our local school districts, Auburn, Washburn, Topeka Public Schools, Shawnee Heights, Seaman, and Silver Lake Schools. Those districts are projecting 50 to 60 student teachers during the spring semester, and we're customizing it for student teachers. So we'll have a kickoff luncheon that's at the Brown versus Board National Historic Site. These student teachers will be able to take a Capitol tour, and we've matched it around the January's first Friday, so they'll be able to see what's going on up in NODA that evening with the reception as well. We'll be offering professional development dinners, and they'll have an opportunity to be showcased kind of what's going on. The districts are really excited about this, and they recognize the recruitment and retention support through this Quality of Life and Workforce Initiative. With that, unless you have any questions, I'll introduce Gabe to talk with you more about Top City Interns in Forge.
Are there questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I'm just going to talk about the results of Top City Interns and kind of our steps forward. So if you see on the slide, we had 191 students coming from 49 different universities and colleges throughout the United States. Their hometowns were in 23 different states, and including the District of Columbia, in 6 different countries. We had 50 of the interns actually stay at Washburn Villages or their Ramada downtowns. We want to kind of group them together, get them to know each other. The goal of this program was simple. It is to turn these interns into young professionals. We want to retain them here to Topeka. So the initial results, we did a survey at the end of the program, and we had over 70% say that they're interested in staying in Topeka if they get offered a full-time job. So it's encouraging, but we won't know the exact numbers until later on this coming spring of 2018. So we're going to continue to track that, and this is going to be our baseline. So we're going to be revamping it, making it even better next year. I just want to share a few of the comments. In the survey, we had a section where they told us about their experience, the good, the bad. We wanted to hear from them. First person said that the best part was getting a taste of being a young professional in Topeka. Another intern said, I enjoyed building relationships and really getting involved in the community during my time in Topeka. And then the last one is, I lived in Topeka my whole life, so the best part was getting to meet other people that wanted to be in Topeka too. So this is just a few of the interns' experience, and so we're very excited about that. And the other thing I want to touch on briefly is this Forge, our membership. We're up to 1,748 members. That's an increase of 767 members, and we're just going to continue to grow. So we're looking forward to 2018 and doing bigger and better things. Thank you. Without any questions, is there any questions?
Thank you.
I would like to introduce Kayla Bittler. She's the Strategic Coordinator for Momentum 2022.
Thank you. Wow, I'm really impressed by all of my teammates tonight. This is really great, and even though I'm around this stuff every day, it's still great to hear all the progress that's happened since the last JEDO meeting. I'm going to take the next 2 minutes just to update you on sort of the goings-on of Momentum 2022. As I'm sure you'll recall, the work of the strategy is divided into 7 different working groups. Those 7 work groups are on your screen. We have downtown and NODO, marketing, entrepreneurship, economic development, community engagement, quality of place, and talent development. Each one of those work groups is meeting monthly. They've learned about existing initiatives in the community. They've created inventories of those existing initiatives. They're identifying gaps, and they're determining what exactly are their initial tasks. And I'm going to tell you, this is some really tough work. It is hard to define what exactly are the tactical actions that relate to these big, lofty objectives. And it does make it easy to understand why communities sort of put these strategies on the shelf, but they're working hard at it, and they're really giving it their all and doing a great job. With respect to metrics, the metrics task force is working to determine 10 to 15 metrics that will come to be a part of a community scorecard. So the partnership will measure lots of different things, but it's these 10 or 15 metrics that we're really aiming to influence within the next 5 years with the different objectives within the Momentum 2022 strategy. The next step in that process will then be to meet with community partners to determine what exactly are the SMART goals as they relate to those metrics. The East Topeka Council, they've met twice, and they are identifying both concerns and opportunities for East Topeka. While there are certainly some strong feelings on the part of East Topekans, it's been my experience thus far that Momentum 2022 has been well received by that group, and they're just really happy to have a seat at the table and to be a part of some really important community conversations. The capital campaign, Matt stole my glory here, but he deserved to do so because he's been doing a ton of heavy lifting with regard to going on all these campaign calls. The fundraising goal for the campaign is $6.3 million. Matt quoted a figure of approximately $5 million that is our committed dollar amount, but I will also add in, we have another almost $3 million pending from another 53 investors, so that's really exciting as well.
Wow.
Are there any questions?
Questions? Seeing none, thank you.
I just have a short comment. And I've said it before, but I just think great credit goes to the staff, the consultants, and this board in that I think this is the first time I've been involved in a 5-year plan that's measurable. I mean, it's not like distance so that, oh, well, if we don't get it, times changed. This is very measurable, and you all have gotten it off to a great start.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is 712 Innovations, and Karen Christalis, Zach Sneeden.
Hello. Thank you so much for letting me report to you this evening. I'm very excited because I will be joined by Zach Sneeden, our president of our management committee, as we give you an overview of not only our fourth quarter, but plans for the future, because 712 Innovations is at the nexus of the 2 reports that you've heard, both Momentum 2022 as well as the Think Big study. So first off, though, for the fourth quarter, to give you some insight into what we've been doing most recently. Currently, we have 140 members at 712 Innovations. The makeup of those members is 73% are they're utilizing the co-work space, 21% utilize both spaces, and 6% utilize the maker space. Out of that, we have 28 small businesses that utilize 712 Innovations as their primary business location, and then 5 storefronts. And a storefront means a place such as Hazel Hill Chocolates, and who have their own storefront but utilize the space, and you'll hear a little bit later about how they do that. We also, in that nexus, we have community programs as well as member programs. And so one of the community programs that we do, that we have done, is with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, with our partners, the WSBDC and the EMBD. We hosted a public workshop, and then after that workshop, there were 5 of our entrepreneurial inventors who were able to talk one-on-one with representatives from the office about their upcoming projects and whether it was patent ready and what the steps would be for that. We also offer classes for our members, and we've had 102 of those in this fourth quarter. And then we offer classes that are open to the public as well, such as the audio workshops. One of our members, Create Uplift, they have monthly meetups to do workshops on audio training and DJing. And so that activity has resulted in 168 jobs created. This is both the sole owner member, their job, as well as contractors and freelancers that these small business owners employ. And that also includes 490 training hours in our community that have been utilized in the activity that's happening there in the center. For a total 3-year report, Since I've given you some fourth quarter numbers, I thought I'd let you look at our grand total to date. We have 108 startups that are represented. And again, given both the business owner and then the subcontractors they use, that's 330 jobs created. A total of 298 classes or workshops, and that translates to 895 hours in our community, and a total number of 286 members at 712 Innovations. 15 prototypes have been developed. Not all prototypes, as you know, move on to patent, but we have had 4 of them who are moving through the patent process right now. And perhaps the best way that Zach and I thought to give you a little taste of 712 Innovations is we have a short video for our to allow our members to talk with you. And then Zach will be talking with you about the future.
Place like 712 gives you a place to start with really low capital requirements to take that first leap, get your prototype and get your product built to a level where you kind of deferred some of those risks before you start reaching for outside capital and big asset investments. We just started a line of high-end chocolates where we're bringing in cacao beans from around the world. And one of the pieces we needed to do that is a machine called a winnower. It separates the husk from the seed in the cacao beans. And we were able to come here to 712 and use the tooling and build that ourselves. And we are now producing chocolate from cacao, and we're using that winnowing machine that we were able to build here for a couple of $100 and you know, a couple of weeks of our time. I mean, that's a huge value for somebody who's trying to make a micro business plan and really trying to prototype their way into a new line of business. You can't get that kind of support without something like 712.
With that cost of not necessarily needing to have a storefront, you're still able to run a full legal business, and you don't have to worry about those operating costs. There's people coming in and out all day. This is kind of becoming the hub of entrepreneurship here in Topeka, and it's just a great location to make friends and make new connections.
Just kind of like one big family, and we all want to help each other, and we all have a common goal of bettering ourselves and our businesses. So that's always, it's a great resource to have. Being around people that are wanting to make Topeka a better place, wanting to better themselves. I mean, it's a great resource to just network, and I'm a marketing person and I love people, so that's always awesome.
We ended up winning the pitch competition here at Washburn a little while ago. Came up with an idea called Allspice, which was a smart spice dispenser, kind of like Keurig for flavor. And we were able to work with the CAD programs, 3D print some parts out, and we were able to have a mock-up of our prototype right here. So it's a very flexible space. It doesn't matter. Being part of 712 has really, I think, made people realize that there's all sorts of talent and variation here in Topeka that you may have never assumed. You know, if you were just walking downtown on any random Thursday, some people would have an idea as to what they think Topeka is about. But then you step in 712, and all of a sudden you've got these eclectic movers and shakers who are doing just about anything and everything. It changes the way that you look at the town and what you think is possible.
Good evening. Zach Sneeden, 712 Management Chair. Oops, let's not do that again. So as Karen said, Karen kind of shared some of where we've been, and that we're moving into our 4th year of business, and really modeling the startup mentality, understanding what worked and what didn't work, and where we as an organization need to go in the future to really to be the support mechanism for entrepreneurialism in Topeka. And what that looks like is starting to have a more intentional focus on supporting those entrepreneurs and startups in startup companies in Topeka, but not just as startups like. Or in addition to the second stage companies like Nick Zaitis at Hazel Hill, where they're really looking at taking what their current product is and looking at a new market to move into, and providing that the resources and the tools necessary to make those companies, new companies, existing companies, stronger in the community. You heard some mention before the other. Earlier in the night about the Think Big presentation. I sat in on that presentation as well, and there was talk they had done throughout through their research, they had done interviews with people in the community, and one of the questions that they asked is, can the next big thing come out of Topeka? And there's a lot of discussion about, is Topeka really poised, Topeka and Shawnee County really poised to have that next big thing happen, and or to come out of it, and what does it take to see the innovation, both from new businesses, but then also from corporations, larger corporations that exist in Topeka, and how can we, as an organization, 712, create those programs that help these small businesses grow, that help the second stage and the corporations innovate and excel at it, and also have the resources to do fabrication and prototyping within the lab that we have at 712. So it's really looking at a shift in kind of that shift in what the model of 712 is, and really focusing on a meaningful programs that help businesses grow. And so it was, I think, not by chance that you heard both from Molly and Dr. Hahn about the power of collaboration and what that can do for businesses, people with ideas, people with that want to further develop an idea, and that's really the core focus of what happens at 712 is that collaboration of bringing people together with ideas so that they can collaborate and make those ideas stronger and turn them into viable businesses within Shawnee County through incubator programs and accelerator programs. And so what do those programs look like, and what does that mean for 712, and leveraging it and turning it into an entrepreneurial hub that is really a core focus of entrepreneurialism, is one of the core focuses of the Momentum 2022 strategy. And it really, one of the things that Think Big talked about is that there are a lot of programs that already exist in the community, and some of it is, some of the troubles that people have is how do you navigate what your needs are for growing a business, and 712 can be that hub, start to bring those existing programs into one location and allow some programmatically kind of navigation of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so looking at kind of framing all that in the context of Momentum 2022 and what does a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem do in your community, and it not only helps grow businesses, but it also creates that the aspects of quality of life. It looks at, we talked about the retention of talent, both young talent and older students, but retaining those students in the community. Dr. Hahn spoke about the biotech and fintech and the BAFTech initiatives, and the need for those types of collaborative space, and the 712 works alongside those initiatives, and what synergies exist to start to bring all those entities together into one home that is 712. So it's not a another thing that Think Big, the Think Big presenters talked about is that there's not a definitive answer for a lot of what communities are doing in terms of trying to grow their entrepreneurial ecosystems. It's looking at what are some calculated risks that we can take to determine to help people come up with what that next big idea is in Topeka. So with that, I stand for any questions regarding 712.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Archer.
I know that there is a proposal to increase the amount that's allocated to 712 by about $25,000 at this point. But I was looking over your income statements for the past several years, and in 2015, 712 lost $80,824. And then in 2016, 712 lost $19,821. Do you have some thoughts on that and what's going on?
I think a lot of those costs were related to the startup, the build out of the space. That there was we had excess capital expenses early on to build out that space.
So for this year, are we at break even or going to make money?
This year, I believe we're close to breaking even.
Yes, absolutely. We are this year going to break even. And if you'll notice throughout the entire financials that I sent, each year we continue, like any startup, there's always an initial phase where you have to put some money, some skin in the game. And so thank you for allowing us to be able to do that, to be able to create the infrastructure that we needed. And so that's why the financials reflect what they do, because we ourselves are an entrepreneur. And like any entrepreneur, as you go in, you should see that steady increase each year, both in your financials as well as your programming and the product which is coming out. And so that's what we have. And like an entrepreneur, we're pivoting. Given what we've learned, we are responding both to the Momentum 2022 study as well as the Think Big study to provide Shawnee County and Topeka's entrepreneurs what they need.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, one more question. Well, if we're in the point now that we're going to break even, why do we need a 33% increase in the allocation?
Some of these programs that we are going to bring in to allow us to do that pivot that's recommended in Momentum 2022 is going to cost some programming costs, like with anything that starts up. But also on the other side, and being part of the Greater Topeka Partnership, we will be increasing our fundraising, which we haven't had a lot of activity with that to date, but we will be increasing that as well. So we'll continue that upward slope.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilman Hiller.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered with this, obviously you're shifting somewhat how you're going to approach this, but you had a slide a little earlier that talked about how many people were involved in the makerspace, how many were involved in the co-work space, and so on. Yes, so what do you expect that to look like, that chart to look like? Obviously, classes are good and all that, but what we want is people using what we've invested in. So I think a lot of the startup investment was in the equipment for the makerspace. Mm-hmm. So what do you expect that chart to look like in a year?
I would expect that our numbers continue to grow in terms of usage because, again, referencing the Greater Topeka Partnership, one of the things as the entrepreneurial hub is we will be connecting more with already the existing programs within the GTP partnership as well as beyond the partnership, and allowing both community-based and free and open access programs, which will allow people to be part of that entrepreneurial excitement and hub, as well as things that are specific for the members, so that we can have that excitement and interconnectivity that happens in the halls. That's one of the hard things to kind of bring here. We tried with the video to bring a little bit of that. right now we have 2 members. In fact, I just left them over there. They're developing a patent, and they met at 712 Innovations. One is an engineer, and the other, his current business is in IT, and they've come together. They're doing an Illuminario light that they're also working with one of the architects in our building, because that will be able to be a local piece of art. Would that be the right word, Zach? So that it would be a large-scale art project or a small-scale home project. And that sort of interconnectivity doesn't happen unless we have that place and those programs that allow that interchange of ideas. So I would look at it increasing.
But you're right in noticing that the majority of the need is in the co-working side of things, and I think that's part of why we're looking at and understanding what those, of that 73%, what are their needs? Why are they choosing to be at 712, and what are their needs, whether they're growing a business or starting a business or growing an existing business that they have. And so it's really looking at what programs do they need to be more successful. And also understanding that our demand is in the co-working space, and that there really is a waiting list to be in 712, primarily on the co-working side.
So not to put words in your mouth then, but you would look then at this first 3 years as an opportunity to really learn the market a little bit more and be better prepared?
I mean, it was, and from the outset, and I was involved from the outset, it was, let's figure out, is this something that Topeka needs, and is there, what does that model look like? And at the time, we looked at that model of a kind of 50-50, or maybe it was a little heavier on the makerspace side, and we analyzed that model for 3 years, and now we're pivoting, and we're shifting that model. I think there'll still be, as you heard from Nick, that there's still an importance of having that fabrication area to make things that support your business, and so I think that will continue to be a component of 712, and but I think there'll be I know there will be a stronger emphasis on the co-working side of things, and really bringing in the other program partners that already exist in the community to better support the growth of those businesses.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, good. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now we go to, and actually we're out of the quarterly report. We're just having some other presentations. Next is Barbara is going to introduce.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to introduce Susan Duffy, who is the General Manager of Topeka Metro. This is the pilot transportation initiative that the Go Topeka Board did hear this presentation that you will, and did recommend it for consideration. So with that, Susan.
Okay, Susan, and someone with her.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I also have with me Jim Ogle, our board chairman. The mission of the Topeka Metro is to be a transportation solution provider in the Topeka community. Within that, we have 2 community-wide strategies: getting kids to school and getting people to work. Back in September 2012, we started this project with Mars. They reached out to us, wanted to know if we could stand up a service. This is back in 2012 before they opened. We had numerous discussions. The other HR and plant managers from the surrounding businesses were invited as well. We worked on this for over a year. The dollar amounts just didn't seem to work. It kind of went silent. Then the HR folks reached out to us again saying, we need to talk about getting people to work out here. I will tell you that in the 32 plus public hearings or public meetings we have had in the last 5 years, the one constant is, when are you going to stand up a route so I can work down south and make the big bucks. We hear this all the time. So the proposal that we have before you tonight is called the SODO Workforce Development Route. It is not a fixed route bus service. Rather, it is a demand response with Capital City Taxi being our service provider. This will allow us, in a very inexpensive way, find out what is the true need of folks so that they can go to work in South Topeka at 6 businesses: Mars, Home Depot, Bimbo Bakery, Target, Frito-Lay, and Maximus. This will be a 24/7 service. We are leasing one of our vehicles to them so that there will be ADA accessible service. For $5, you can ride one way to the plant, and $5 you ride one way. I mean, we'll take you where you want to go, but it's just one ride. And this is a year-long pilot. We believe it will take that long to get folks to learn about it, believe in it, and really begin to use it. We will be working with the HR directors. If this is approved, we propose that we will do a soft startup this week. As a matter of fact, we're ready to roll. We've been working with the HR folks and with Capital City, and so we have a short video to show you if there are no other questions at this point.
I work at the Home Depot Deployment Center. It's a long drive out here, and it's a burden a little bit financially as far as gas. With having a car right now that's actually broken down and trying to get that fixed, having the $5 ride here and from work is going to be extremely important. With other employees here and their families as well, they can use this service to get back and forth from work. I think this service will be crucial for my family. My grandson was born on New Year's. I have started a savings account already for him, and any extra money that I can have in his account and my savings and checking account as well is always a plus.
My name is John Sparta. I ride for 5.
Riding the taxi out there to go to work because his car's been broken down. There's several people who are already taking the taxi to get to work down there on a regular basis, and he was real excited. He asked if he could be in the video. So if there's any questions.
How are you marketing?
We will. Yes, we will be working with each of the HR directors. We've already made the posters to go up in the workrooms and the break rooms. It will go in their newsletter. All they have to do is show us their ID. You know, they're going to or from the work facility. We've got signs already made. We know where we will be picking everyone up, but we are going to have to beat the drums to get the word out. We'll get with the Kansas Workforce Center, with the NIAs, so we'll be spreading the word.
Okay. Questions, discussion? Councilman, Commissioner Archer.
Yeah, and I've got a few items, Mr. Mayor, if I could. This is a taxi cab service.
Yes, it is.
Okay. If I work at Goodyear, can I use the service?
No, we have geofenced this area in particular, these businesses, and this is the only place where we are offering this service at this time.
So I can't go to Goodyear, I can't go to Security Benefit, I can't go to the Federal Home Loan Bank, I can't go to Westridge Mall. I can only go to South Topeka.
Correct, at this time, and here's why. We are trying to gauge based on, you've got a sheet in there that shows when the shifts occur. We're talking about 24/7 service, working with Capital City, and this is the most efficient way to do this. And we've got to make sure we can provide adequate service, get people to work on time. And we figured the cluster, they're all going to work down there. We'll be picking up several people probably at one time, dropping them off, at Mars, then move over here, and same way with picking them up. Now, we've already heard from Reesers. We've already heard from some others. Westridge Mall, geofence that, actually the whole Wanamaker corridor. So if it works here, we plan to look at expanding it into other locations. But right now, it's these 6 businesses in the SODO area.
And on a couple of occasions that I've been in meetings lately, you've indicated that TMTA needs a mill levy increase. That you've robbed Peter and Paul and Mary, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't get that. You had to go back to the 60s and 70s to get Peter, Paul, and Mary, but I did. So you want to take on more service, whereas you're having problems dealing with the local service that you're providing now. So
I believe our initiative is to try this on as a pilot without standing up capital, a new bus, without standing up new employees. Try it as a pilot with Capital City. We use them to transport our most fragile folks in the community, are disabled who are ambulatory. We contract with them, and they do all our ambulatory pickups and have for several years now. We believe that there is a need, we're hearing there is a need, and that this would be the most efficient way to pilot to see how much is the need, and see if there's something greater than what we're able to offer, or is this enough, or but to begin the pilot and really put the rubber on the road, so to speak.
Hey, just one more thing, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I was thinking back, and I had a discussion with Mr. Provarnik this morning at coffee about when the voters went to the polls in 2014 to vote for the countywide half-cent sales tax and why they did it. And I remember the ads that they showed. They showed potholes, a lot of potholes, and I remember Mars and jobs and capital investment was the main driver for success of the sales tax. I don't think the voters had any idea that we would be talking about a taxi service. I'm not saying it's not needed. I think it breaks faith with the voters who voted for the sales tax when we go way outside the scope of bringing jobs and capital development to Shawnee County and our community. That's my view, and I can't support this. Thank you.
Jim Ogle, did you wish to comment? Mr. Ogle?
I'm only eye candy on Susan's shoulder. As the person who wrote a heck of a lot of those spots,
were you? We
recognize that economic development is more than just you all voting to give a subsidy to some people. We have to create the conditions that allow the businesses who set up in an area like South Topeka to be able to attract good workers and keep them. It's a critical need for them in all their HR departments to get these people down here so they can fill the second and third shift work. Many of those places are working those 3 shifts. So consequently, we're trying to do a solution that does live up to the spirit of what we've been charged to do, get more jobs in this community and more people to fill those jobs, but do it in a way that is extremely cost effective compared to the traditional transit answer would have been, let's set up a regular route, let's hire some bus drivers and do all that, and it would cost us a couple $100,000. And we just didn't feel like, as a board, as a group, that made sense. And so we were very excited that this might be a pilot that, with your support and help over the next year, we're able to make this work here, and it may serve as a way. We already provide service to Security Benefit during their regular working hours. We provide service to a number of places, but we don't to Goodyear. If this does help Goodyear and they need to attract more people to get people out there to work, it may be a solution there as well.
But you did the ads. You did a lot of the work in passing the 2014 sales tax. And you've got to admit that nothing that we're talking about today would have ever been conceived when the voters went to the polls, and the ads that you did.
The ads I did actually showed off lots of cute animals at the zoo to start with, and then talked about jobs. And this is a job creation device and job sustaining device.
I disagree. Thank you.
Commissioner Cook.
If I might have a question for Susan.
Yes.
Why is this being brought to JEDO instead of just, operating completely under the TMTA? Why wouldn't this be something that the Topeka Metropolitan takes up as opposed to having it brought through JEDO? What is the nexus or connection?
Actually, Barbara Stapleton reached out to us because the HR directors had said we have trouble with people retaining jobs because they don't have reliable transportation, or they come out to apply and there is a problem because they don't have transportation all the way outside of town, but they want to work at these jobs. And so that's the connection, is that we were contacted and we brainstormed with the HR folks and with the plant managers back in 2012 to figure out how can we provide service down there. I do know that Maximus, they're very excited about this. They believe that it will help a lot of their current employees. And again, it's one thing to get a job, it's another thing to keep it. And transportation seems to be the common denominator in that regard.
But, Mr. Mayor, if I may, Mr. Ogle talked about that a traditional plan would have been to have an established route and several $100,000 that are committed to it. This is not a traditional route. This is a taxiing service. Is this not able to be completely funded under the current operations of the TMTA?
Frankly, we're at a point where we have been under 4.2 mils for 8 years into our 9th, and we have pretty much hit a brick wall for a lot of the projects that we would like to initiate, and this is one that seemed to, if we could get some support further, we'll be visiting with companies about perhaps offering this as a benefit to attract people down there, and that perhaps they later on see it works, that they will invest in it as well.
So does this wind up being just as an alternative to the TMTA raising their mill levy? It's being presented through JEDO.
No, that is not what this is about. This is one where we've just been in discussion with the folks at the chamber and other places for the last 5 years, and it seems that perhaps this falls under the purview of providing some workforce development assistance.
Okay. Councilman De La Isla.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. I, for one, am excited to see this happening, and here's why. I just came back from Harvard from one of the trainings for the new mayors, and the number one thing that they talked about being needed to change the economic situation of a family, which is what economic development is all about, is transportation. I ordinarily would not agree with using JEDO funds in order for us to do a development program for transportation. However, it is specialized in an area in which we as JEDO have put a significant amount of dollars for people to have employment. And I have been privileged to go with Barbara to some of the meetings with the HR directors. And what they're saying is people need a way to get here. When you hear the community, they're saying people need a way to get here. So this is specifically earmarked as a pilot program to see if there really is that need. And if we do increase that, while our employers are asking for people to show up at work, which is something that we have to be very mindful of, for us to say no, I think it's a creative pilot way. We're not saying that we're going to completely fund this forever. We're saying that we're evaluating a program that is going to take people directly into their workplace. So based on that, I will be supporting it. I'm excited. I'm excited because this changes us from the model that we were told that we needed to change from, which was primary employers. This is holistic economic development, and it's what we're aiming towards. That's what Momentum 2022 is all about. So I'm excited. I'm going to support this.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councilwoman Hiller, we're going to have to be closing now.
I will.
One more.
I will.
That'll be it.
I want to challenge, if I could, Commissioner Archer, in that for 3 reasons. This being an example. One is that when we did the master planning that we've done recently, and when we negotiated amongst ourselves what would be in that interlocal agreement, it was not just, quote, economic development and streets anymore, because we jointly had acknowledged that economic development and attracting companies and people to come here and stay here was bigger than just doing primary jobs. And so we had that broaden, or we wouldn't have the zoo and the expo center and so on in the interlocal. Second, we learned from attracting those big box companies such as Mars that they wanted more than just a cash incentives. One of the things that drew Mars to come here was that we knew that they wanted to be, I believe, LEED Platinum, at least LEED Gold, and LEED, either one of them includes mass transit to get their employees to work. So that was something they asked us for, and in good faith, we said, we'll work on that to keep you here. And they came without us having that already. So there's an amount of faith that we've built up in terms of talking to those companies. We chose to put the industrial park outside the city limits, knowing that we might need to do something to get people there. And third, I've certainly heard again and again in this body, and certainly at the council level as well, lots of people saying, we want those jobs not just for new people to move here, but we want people who live here to be able to get those jobs. JEDO, city, county, are you going to help us make sure that we can do that? And I'm sitting on the workforce, or it's called talent development group right now, because that resonated enough with me that I felt spending more time even personally on that was important. But to get people who already are here that started out maybe just making cabinets in East Topeka at the cabinet place that we supported, working their way up to that bigger bucks opportunity included transportation. And I would argue that we knew it, and B, we really were making a commitment to help our Topekans get those good jobs too.
Okay.
For counterpoint.
One.
Counterpoint.
Counterpoint.
No, and I'm not saying there's not a need. There are a lot of unmet needs that we've got. All I'm saying is when the people went to vote on the sales tax, they saw economic development, they saw streets, they saw the zoo, they saw the expo center, and they saw bikeways. They didn't see a taxi cab service to be provided. And I think, in my view, we're going to disappoint a lot of voters who voted for the sales tax, who won't vote for another one. And we're going to disappoint a lot of city property taxpayers who are going to see their mill levy go up due to TMTA and subsidizing taxi service. That's my only point. So we just respectfully disagree on this point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
A final word.
The funds will only be used if we get the calls. So if we don't get the calls, the money will not be used.
Okay, that item we've completed. We have one more report, and that's the quarterly financial report for JEDO, and this Nikki Lee, administrator from the city.
Good evening. I am here representing the Joint Economic Development Organization Finance Committee, which, as you know, is the finance directors from both the city and the county, and the public works directors from the city and the county. So as you can imagine, this has been a big quarter for at least the bank accounts for the city and the county, because this is the quarter where the cash from phase 1 got distributed to both entities. So it may feel like quite a while ago that you all heard about that action and then approved uses of those funds as governing bodies separately. But this is the first quarterly report where that's appearing in front of you, because those transactions occurred in July. So kind of walking through from top to bottom, in the beginning of 2017, there was over a $15 million cash balance, and that was really a buildup from the excess funds from phase 1. So this is a transitionary year where we've got a mixture of phase 1 money and phase 2 money. So that money had been building up. In the meanwhile, we've been receiving receipts both within the city and the county. And kind of as you've seen within city and county general sales tax, it is growing, but pretty modestly, a little over 1% over the prior year. As far as disbursements, this is really a mixture within this quarter of a variety of different actions. Wherever you see Phase 2, City of Topeka and Shawnee County, that's the money that was approved, as was just alluded to, with the most recent vote of the Phase 2 of the tax. So that's distributed to the city and the county to be spent on the projects as were priorly mentioned. And then we're also completing out everything from Phase 1. So 21st Street, for any of you who live in that area, that project was completed this past spring, and we made the final payout from the Phase 1 tax late this summer. And then that also kind of spurred the next action for us to distribute the funds that had been building up from Phase 1 to the city and the county. So you can see the final dollars there were $9.8 million and $8.3 million, and each of those governing bodies took their own separate actions for how to spend those funds. But those funds are now no longer in the JEDO account. They are distributed with each of those bodies and entities. And then in addition, the Go Topeka fee, that's of course just all of their payments that they receive through the third quarter. An audit fee to pay for just our annual audit, and then we do have bank charges that are analysis fees, and then wire transfers whenever we do a wire. And then from here on out, any of these quarterly statements will really just be reflecting what's the new phase, so Phase 2. And now the way that we are working with the funds is an in and an out. So we receive the money as JEDO, we pay Go Topeka fee, and then we distribute the money right back to the city and the county to spend as appropriate with each of those entities. If we ever have a bank balance, it's due to the timing of receiving payments and when we distribute. So I'm sure you're trying to do the math and figuring out why would you ever have any money in this account. It's really because we receive sales tax at the end of a month. Usually we then aren't able to move it between accounts until the first week of the next month. So really, if I would have done this report a week after this, you'd see that we only carry about $1,000 in this account. So it's cleared out regularly every month. And that's an overview of the finances.
Are there any questions? And that's in the new interlocal agreement.
Yes.
Which has us doing it like this, moving the funds out to the city and county immediately. Okay,
Good.
no questions? That completes the presentations. We'll go then back to the action items. The first one, Seven, if the clerk would read.
Approval of the 2018 annual business plan and budget for the Growth Organization of Topeka, Shawnee County Incorporated.
And that's Molly. Howie will begin.
Hello again. All right, so the budget process for us was new this year. As you'll remember, we presented a draft budget to you all in September and invited you to meet with the Go Topeka team to ask questions and give feedback. And most of you took us up on that, so thank you for your feedback and good conversations there about our future. Please remember that to implement the Community Economic Development Strategy Momentum 2022, Go Topeka will engage multiple partners, so this budget does not encompass all the pieces of the strategy. However, I assure you that the strategy is cross-cutting and all of our departments have some changes that are reflective of the Momentum 2022 strategy. I would like to go ahead and, as Nikki did, start from the top and work our way down. So I will hit on the highlights here if you follow along with me. First, salaries and personnel. We're budgeting a 12% increase in our health insurance there. So you'll see a change from 17 to 18, and it's actually a decrease, but that is something we'll talk about later on, and that's reflective of the Greater Topeka Partnership and some centralized departments that we haven't had in the past. Under departmental, new business attraction, there's not much change in the scope here. We're still focusing on relationships and getting information out to companies and site selectors to show them why Topeka and Shawnee County is the best choice for their relocations and expansions. There's a small decrease there, and that is just based on some marketing dollars that were set in that specific department that are now moved over to the centralized marketing department. Which brings us to the first new item in the budget, and that's the marketing. You'll see no numbers there in 2017, but for 2018 and going forward, this centralized marketing department It's reflective of the robust plan that we have with strategic planning through Momentum 2022. And now we've set aside funds to fully staff this robust plan. And so there are a lot of initiatives that have not been included in economic development in the past. And graphic designers, project managers, communication staff, those are all wrapped up into the services that are involved in that number. Existing business, as you've seen in the past year, we'll continue to see in the future, is growing, and the support that Jackie provides to assist in their growth is captured here. We do have 2 headquarters visits planned for 2018, along with the Financial Services Summit that has been a big hit in the past, and a new existing employer recognition program. Moving down to workforce development, the main focus for this department is continuing to work with school districts on workplace skills training, pre-pathway assessments, and the continuation of the wildly successful internship program that you heard about earlier this evening. Not much change there in the numbers either. EMBD, Glenda continues to respond to small business and entrepreneur community, and some of the new initiatives for 2018 are focusing on the BAFTech opportunity, which you heard a lot about earlier from Dr. Hahn. And then an economic gardening program, and really fortifying our ecosystem for the entrepreneurship ecosystem of Topeka and Shawnee County. Moving to the next section, we have budgeted an increase in utilities, rent, and office maintenance. And this is in anticipation of a new space to share with the rest of the Greater Topeka Partnership. Space in downtown that we can be proud of as our front door of our community is a little more expensive than the space that we're in right now, which I think is a catch-22. Yeah, we do have to realize that in our budget, but it's also reflective of all the activity that's going on downtown, and it's a market adjustment, truly, to move us to the hub of the community and where we think we should be. Let's see, now to the admin and finance. This is the second new area that you haven't seen in the past. So we're in the process of looking for a senior financial officer to manage the funds of the Greater Topeka Partnership. And the number here really reflects Go Topeka's portion of a fully staffed finance and admin department that we haven't had in the past. Heartland Visioning is obviously an important component of our community, and we have moved the funding for that program to the private budget that is supported by the private sector. So that program will continue, just funded solely by the private sector. An Entrepreneur Hub is a huge part of the Momentum 2022 strategy as well. The continuation of funding for 712, and as Bob alluded to earlier, the increase in their funding is reflected in this budget on its own line item for the first time. That's why you don't see a number in the 2017 column. It had previously been in the EMBD line. This used to be $75,000 and is now bumped to $100,000 based on the future plans for that organization. The last section is where you see the bulk of the dollars, and this is always the case. Anticipated incentive commitments is the incentive funding that has been approved but not yet earned. So for instance, we awarded incentive dollars to Federal Home Loan Bank, and we anticipated that their building completion and their certificate of occupancy would be finished by 2017, and that has bumped into 2018. And that's, for instance, that's about an $800,000 item. So that line item is always kind of fluid. It's not something that we don't anticipate spending. It's just a timing adjustment there with when those dollars are earned. Let's see. Then we move down to new incentives. This is something that we haven't utilized in the time that I've been with Go Topeka. So to be more accurate, we have decreased that amount from $500,000 down to $250,000, and we'll continue to monitor that and fine tune that fund in the future years. This is just us really digging into the numbers and seeing how to make this the most accurate budget as we can. Workforce initiatives that are in that line item, you'll see the footnote that gives more explanation. East Topeka Learning Center, broadband, and the transportation pilot you just heard about. The new business initiatives is the continuation of the small business incentive program. And the 49th Street project hasn't changed either, so that number is still the same as it has been. So if you back out the East Topeka Learning Center dollar amount and the 49th Street costs, we land just under budget by about $130,000. I know that was kind of quick and concise, but I wanted to hit the high points, so I'll stand for any questions and comments.
Okay, are there questions, discussion on the budget? Commissioner Archer?
And I've expressed my concern to you before that we're combining Visit Topeka, downtown Topeka, the Golden Chamber. And we should see economies, we should see savings, and yet rent's going up, administrative expenses are going up, and I'd like the public to hear why that's happening.
Sure. So I think a couple of the things I touched on. So for rent, it's really a market adjustment. For us to find space that is of the size that we need, that is the quality that we believe needs to be for the front door, and because of the rates on Kansas Avenue and in downtown, that's a market adjustment. It is an increase of 30%. We do hope to beat that number, but we didn't want to be, so it is conservative, I guess I'd say. I didn't click through my slides. I got to talking too fast, so I don't know if there's anything else of value in here, but so for the admin and finance, that's a value that you all should be proud of, to have a senior finance officer that is well-versed in different funding streams and how to manage that and keep those dollars separate. I think that's a good value for the dollar amount that's in that line item. For the marketing department, this is a centralized marketing department, and that's Go Topeka's share of that department. So it's not that we're funding that whole group of services. We could reach out to other companies in the local area, like we have in the past, to get our graphic design, our project management, our communications, and things like that. We could end up using third parties. Our intent is to use the skills within the Greater Topeka Partnership for those costs. And I think that for the first year of a partnership, this is our best guess as far as what the costs will be. We hope that these numbers are conservative, and with anything, we hope to realize those economies of scale in future years. So I think you'll see some of these numbers drop.
So this is the Go Topeka budget.
Yes.
This is what is funded with the tax dollars that come in. Then the chamber, the other partners also will have budgets.
Yes.
Can you speak to that a bit, how that all works together?
Yeah, so, there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes, and there are a lot of factors that come into play with the services that are being shared. Things like our operating budget, the amount of services that we are going to utilize within those shared departments. So there's time studies that have been done for the people that are going to be providing services. And I think, as I said before, as we move through this year, we'll find out how close to the mark we are, and some of those numbers may drop in the future. But as Go Topeka has a portion of these services, so do the other entities within the partnership, and we believe that it's a fair distribution.
So the financial person is going to be funded by all the organizations?
Yes.
Well, that is critical, because you're going to have a lot of funding streams. You're going to have a lot of expense allocations that go out. And I think it's critical that the public know how that's done, that we know how it's done.
Yes.
I know Commissioner Bueller's been active in Momentum 2022, but for the rest of us, we're not experts. And a lot of it is confusing to us. So I think that's going to be very important.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? We do have people who signed to speak on this action item. We might go to those now. The first is Rachel Ono. And I always say to be followed by Nick Zetas, so if you can get out so we can move it along rapidly. And if you're not familiar, we have lights there. You have 4 minutes. The green light goes on. White means you have 1 minute left, and red means you got to stop. Okay.
Hi,
welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. I don't think I'll take all 4 of the minutes, but I'll watch it. I'm Rachel Ono. I work for Mars Wrigley Confectionery. I'm a human resources business partner. I specifically support the Topeka site. And so I'm here tonight to publicly voice Mars's support for the transportation initiative. Just wanted to share a little bit with you guys, why we support it. I think we heard a little bit about that, but wanted you to hear that directly from us. So my role with Mars as a human resources business partner is I really do 2 things. I work on growing the business, and I support the leadership team to enable the success of our business through people. Topeka is absolutely a growth site for Mars. As Mars Wrigley's newest site, it is, you could say, the growth site for Mars. So the business is really looking to our Topeka site to carry us forward into the future. We're really excited about that. But honestly, one of the things we think about a lot on the leadership team, and I could even say keeps us up at night, is will we be able to attract and retain the workforce that we need to keep up with those growth objectives. So there's a lot of stuff we look at, and we look at what is our part in that and what can we do to continue to support the development of a workforce that can help us keep up with that growth. And so for us in this transportation initiative, we really see an opportunity to move the needle on that. At Mars, we're really proud of our culture. We talk a lot about our 5 principles. One of our principles is mutuality, and that's where we talk about any benefit should be a shared benefit among any stakeholders involved. So for us, this transportation initiative really is an example of that mutuality, that shared benefit. It obviously will benefit us if we are able to tap into a pool of people who are currently unable to come and work for us and contribute reliably. So it benefits us, and we think it benefits those people in the community as well. We think they're good jobs, and we want to be able to provide them to as many people as possible. So that's all I wanted to share with you all tonight. I thank you for your time and attention and listening.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. You have a question?
Would Mars be willing to subsidize?
I think it's absolutely something we would consider. I mean, it's not something I came tonight ready to discuss, but I think it's something we have a lot of interest around.
You indicated that you benefited from it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think
Very
we have
good.
interest in discussing that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you. Nick Zetas, to be followed by Marge Irons.
Good evening. I'm here primarily to speak to you about 712, and I'm going to wear a couple of hats while I speak to you. The first one is going to be as the owner of Hazel Hill Chocolate. Many of you know us as a retail storefront. You may not know that we manufacture almost all the product that we sell. And our manufacturing operation does struggle somewhat with a large increase of cost of goods. For example, the cost of nut products has increased 40% in the last 18 months. And as we're looking at decreasing cost margins, we're looking for where can we grow. And in our industry, the primary source of growth right now, in excess of 20% a year, is in fine and heirloom chocolate. So we produced a program in order to enter that market, which included sourcing cacao from around the world, 6 different countries. We spent a year and about $40,000 of our own capital to develop a product that is a chocolate manufactured here in Topeka that is an heirloom variety in order to continue to grow. That represents about $30,000 of our own investment. The linchpin of that ended up being something called a winnower, which is a device that separates seeds from husks. Those devices are not available at very small scale. The smallest commercially available devices are in excess of $20,000 and really broke the business case for doing that. That's why the workspace at 712 was so important. We were able to find an open source design from the UK, from a seed company, and with the help of 712's facilities and the community that was there, we were able to construct that piece of equipment for a few $100s and a few weeks of our labor. That took a business case that had a payback in excess of 5 years into less than 18 months. So really made it doable for us to enter that market. Our business case creates, I'm sorry, these are tiny numbers compared to what you heard tonight, 2 jobs.
2 jobs.
And we have 3 of the 6 varieties we had planned in place now. We've received our first inquiries from fine chocolate retail stores as far away as New York City. The other things that weren't mentioned tonight, ways we use 712, we employ folks at the kind of bottom end of the economic spectrum. We use 712's conference and internet and video facilities to hold tutorials on GED education for our staff. And we employ about 17 people here in Topeka. We don't have a meeting facility large enough to house all those folks when we want to get them together. We do use 712 for that. I'm going to switch hats for a minute. I'm also now a resident of downtown, and the availability of a workspace and meeting space like 712 was absolutely part of the calculus in whether or not we moved into the downtown area. I fully support also the shift in direction that Zach talked about. As the chair of the Small Business Council at the Chamber, there's clearly a need for more support for entrepreneurial activity, particularly around resources that help folks move from that startup stage to receiving outside investment capital. and I think 712 has a good plan to become a part of that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Now, we've heard from Mars and Hazel Hill, so the third food, Marge Aarons, yes, I'm joking, a feeble attempt.
Thank you, Marge.
And Marge will be followed by Stan McAdoo.
I'm Marge Aarons, and I live in Topeka, and I am speaking for myself. I'm not running for office, and I don't want a job. Okay. My concerns are towards you as our elected officials, our city council and county commission people, who to me represent the heart of representative government. It's the closest to home, and it's the one on which I rely. We all know that the first contract that you have is with your public to serve the common good. And it struck a note to me, Commissioner Archer, when you talked about do we have to help people get to work? So it resonated with me. But in our town, under the stress of city and county and financial interests largely played out in attempts at metropolitan planning, a third party was brought in to carry the public function of economic development. The contract with this organization we are discussing today is creating a well-funded third government arm for us, and I have to admit, I'm very excited by the work of this group. But I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable with that arrangement, especially following the hearty vote by the city to give away 23 years of tax money belonging to the city, the county, and Topeka 501, and also Metro Transit, by the way, to a development pushed by the group we appear to be funding. It is my opinion that there is no way that your public were served justly with this one decision. They could not have digested the 200 and 300 pages of documents promising such a sweet deal to a friend of Go Topeka. They could not attend a secret meeting to get the details of the city's contract with the developer. I want to know more about the Go Topeka budget than it shows us here. I want to know who of their 9 employees do what jobs. Mindful that Topeka 501 teachers average $47,000 a year, I want to know how much Go Topeka employees are paid, and if part of their function serves the Chamber of Commerce. I specifically want to understand how much time and expense on their part goes into making such good friends with you, our elected officials, that such a project as the Wheatfield Tax Increment Finance Development could be shoveled through the Topeka Planning Commission and the City Council and the County Commission. I believe the facts, excuse me, of this kind of influence are trapped inside the generous budget of Go Topeka and, of course, their parent organization. When I Google Forge, I get a heading of Forge-Go Topeka. Yet the Facebook message sent to Forge members urging them to show up at the City Council meeting to support the Wheatfield project with a promise of a T-shirt gives the Topeka Chamber as a source. A Topeka City Council member sits on the board of Forge and voted to support the project. It is now estimated to cost us all $24 million in property and sales tax support, having grown $5 million in a week's deliberation prior to the vote. There's no cap on how much the developer can demand from the city should what they choose to build cost more than anticipated. When you hire public employees, the public knows what those hires do and how much they are paid to do it. There's generous room for comment. No official, legislator, or academic I talked with knew in the end what had hit them with this Forge project. We need to know what we incentivize with the taxes that make our food and all retail higher than 93% of the state. It's unjust to us all to give public money away without open and clear understanding of the consequences of buying into so-called incentive products, as you have done. I thank you for this time.
Thank you. Thank you for your words here. And Marge, I know we will work to try to get information that answers your questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next is, thank you for your comments. Next is Stan McAdoo.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Stan McAdoo, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Topeka Jump in support of the SOTO Ride to Work proposal. Jump became concerned about public transportation options to work when families shared stories about being fired from good jobs for missing shifts and about feeling trapped into minimum wage service jobs because they don't have a car to get to the plants in South Topeka Industrial Park. We met with Susan and immediately forged a partnership to develop a plan that would provide transportation solutions for people who want to work at companies like Bimbo Bakeries and Mars, but do not have a car to get there. There are a few reasons we support today's proposed plan, but first I would like to speak to a few of our concerns. The average story that we heard from families went something like this. Jane Doe lives at 29th and Gage. Jane does not have a car for various reasons, and even if she could afford one, would not be inclined to buy one. Jane relies only on public transit for everyday needs, including getting to work. She currently works at a service position out at Wanamaker, making $9 an hour. When Jane saw an opportunity to apply for a $14 an hour job at Mars, she overlooked it because she does not have a reliable way to get to work. Jane cannot rely on friends or family. The Uber and taxi cab are too expensive and have long wait times. For someone who relies on public transportation options almost totally, this plan is not economical. It would not be an incentive to go for the good paying job south of Topeka because after spending $200 a month on taxi rides, she would be bringing home almost the same amount of money as before. Right now, riders can buy a 24-hour pass for $4 a day or $80 a month. Under the proposed plan, this woman would pay $10 a day, $50 a week, or $200 a month. So the proposed plan does not adequately serve people who do not have a car or friends and family to help them. The best plan would be to have a transit that would cost the rider $4 a day with a 24-hour pass. While this plan does not adequately serve the people in Jane Doe's position, it does serve as a reasonable alternative for others. It does not meet all the needs, but we do support this plan as a pilot and partial solution. This is why. Many employees rely on multiple transportation options like the taxi, family, friends, walking, and biking. This reduces their need to use the proposed plan for every trip to and from work to only specific situations, such as inclement weather, an unexpected request to stay longer for overtime, the arranged family or friends forget or have an emergency, or they can get a ride to work, but they cannot get home or vice versa. In these cases, using the proposed plan can prevent someone from losing their job or support them long enough until they can afford to get a car. First, we urge you to support this plan. Second, Jump will be before you again to further advocate for the plan to be assessed quarterly for progress and to request an expansion to a more comprehensive option that meets the needs of all Topeka riders like the Jane Doe that we introduced earlier. Jump sees transportation as an economic development issue, and it deserves to be a joint effort between the city and the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. That completes the public comment on this item. And board members, we have before us then the approval of the annual business plan and budget for Go Topeka for 2018. Your pleasure.
I'll move it, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen moves to approve the budget.
I'll make a motion to delete.
Okay, I'm going to get a second first, but I want to make sure, okay, Councilman DeLisle seconds. Now we'll entertain an amendment.
Yeah, I want to make a motion to delete the $70,000 for the transportation. Again, I don't think the voters will be very happy with us who approved the sales tax. And I think that's in line item new work incentives. And it's down in footnote number 4. So that's a motion to remove the $70,000.
All right. Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion? Seeing none, we do not have the motion. Is there further discussion on we have a motion and a second to approve the budget. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
We have 6 yes.
And those opposed, have 1 opposed.
Mr. Archiboni, no.
6 having voted in favor, the action is approved, and that approves the annual business plan and budget for 2018. We go to item 8, if the clerk would read.
8 is Go Topeka's 2017 through 2018 cash carry forward agreement.
And we have Molly Howie.
Back again. Okay, well, before you tonight is a cash carry forward agreement. Please note that in your loose items next to your packet that are not bound together, there's been an adjustment and a new agreement is before you. I provided copies of that at the podium for the members of the public that are here tonight as well. The change there is an adjustment in the East Topeka Learning Center project timeline and where those costs will fall. We anticipated a larger expenditure of the East Topeka Learning Center project in 2017, and since that wasn't realized, the number has been changed from 16.5, which was what it was in your original packet, to 17.5 million.
Okay, do we understand? So we have that change. I know we go rapidly. We'll make sure we're aware of it. And okay, we have the 2 pages there in front of us, and then so
okay.
that.
So I don't know if you want to do a motion or you want to do that first?
The one here that has the figures on it.
Yeah, this
easiest.
Yeah, that's a supplemental document that we started providing last year. It's a breakdown that just illustrates items. Some of those items are committed and some are suggestions. We started doing this last year, just at the request of some that didn't understand that some of those carry forward dollars are committed to things like incentive commitments, the 49th Street project, East Topeka Learning Center. There's a fence around the $900-ish for EMBD carry forward as well. So if you look at those items, let's see. So everything on there except for an economic development incentive fund and a quality of place fund are items that are committed and expected to be spent out and have been approved by you all.
So we have already taken action on them.
Mm-hmm.
So they are, although they're in the carryover.
Yeah, this is just for discussion purposes to illustrate. We start with this number of 17.5 million, and as the math works itself through, then we're left with just under 2 million that is not allocated from carry forward dollars. So the 2 items that are new is the Economic Development Incentive Fund, and that's just a suggestion from us that we don't want to clear out our bank account. So if there were a large, big fish project that came in like a Toyota or something like that, then we want to make sure that we have the dollars to compete for that project. And then the quality of place is a suggestion from multiple members of JEDO to set aside dollars for quality of place initiatives that may come before you in the future.
And quality of place are things that were on the ballot that were voted on in 2014?
I think we're kind of back to that philosophical question that we've been talking about all night about what really is the definition of economic development. And so quality of place or quality of life would be something that we would be challenged to create criteria for, and what kind of projects would meet that criteria. And then those projects would be able to come back to you all to decide if they would be approved.
So they would come to us. It still is here that will make the decision on the expenditure of those.
Could you give me some examples of things that you're thinking about for quality of place?
Sure, and I don't know that I would say that I'm thinking about, but I think things in the community that have been discussed. It's funny, I was just looking at some of the materials that we developed for the site selection team for Mars when they came, and there's like a 12-page brochure that we created in response to their question about how our community was looking forward about quality of life initiatives, and specifically at that time their main focus was downtown. But I forgot about this, and I was telling Matt, I said, I was looking at old marketing materials, and we told them that some things we were thinking of, concepts we were thinking of, was a ballpark, riverfront development, a vibrant downtown and redevelopment of the downtown. What was the other? And then, of course, NOTO and things like that. So those are some of the ideas that have been percolating for over 6 years. And I think that this would be a good discussion for this body to have as far as what kind of projects you believe are warranted for these funds.
But we're putting it in, we're just putting this in now.
It's not attached to the agreement or any action that you all are making tonight. It is just for illustration and discussion purposes only, because it was something that was helpful in the past to help people understand what's allocated from the carry forward dollars.
So actually, we have 17.5 million carryover. We have about the first, 6 items are already definite. We've already approved them.
Mm-hmm.
But this explains how we could use some more of the carryover funds.
Yes. Yeah, it's ideas for your approval.
Yeah.
So.
Commissioner Cook.
Molly, earlier this evening, you talked about the site selection priorities and what they're looking at. And again, that quality of place, that factors into site selection for economic development?
Yeah, it's now in the top 5. Last I checked, it was number 3. And, you know, there's different lists that are out there, but that's the main, in the top, it's always in the top 5.
And so this does fall under economic development in that we are making ourselves the most qualified candidate for a project?
I believe it is a component of all of the departments that fall within Go Topeka's realm: workforce development, entrepreneurship, new business attraction, and existing business retention.
I would only suggest if you've got $2 million to spend, you spend it on the Expo Center because that was actually on the ballot. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to express a concern about carrying over taxpayer money that, you know, on the ballot. I don't think putting it in a savings account or earning interest on it or things like that is what it was intended for. It was intended, I think, to be in the community, working in the community. So I won't support the carryover.
Okay. Other comments? Councilwoman Hiller?
I wasn't planning to, but we've had that conversation before around this table about carryover. And in short, the conversation was, well, you know, the voters were expecting us to be good and careful custodians of that money. And there really are 2 alternatives if you end up with money at year end. One is just to spend it, to say you spent it, go figure out someplace to spend it and spend it. And the other is to carry it over and wait until a project or an opportunity that really merits the investment of those dollars comes along. And each year since this whole initiative started, we've solidly supported carrying over money versus just dumping it somewhere. Thank you.
But the thing that's changed this time is there's a mysterious $2 million out there that nobody knows anything about. And so I'm not going to support the carryover either with that assumption in there. I agree with Councilman Cohen.
Okay. If there are no other points right now, we do have some people signed to speak, so we'll have our public comment now. The first is Mike Morris, to be followed by Christy Rocker.
Good evening. I know you're going to find this shocking, but I support quality of place and quality of life. I know you're shocked by this. I've never spoken like that before. I never talked about how important it is to make sure we have places that our kids choose to live. I mean, that's our goal that we chase this always is. I have an 11-year-old, I have a 14-year-old, and I want them to come back here and live here. And I want them to choose to live here, and not because they want to choose to live here. So we pursued this for a long time. Many of you know my dad. Dad, I thought was crazy for the longest time for being passionate about downtown and being passionate about Topeka. And I had a chance to work with him and saw why he was so excited and loved Topeka so much. I was lucky enough to go on the first inner city visit to Springfield, Missouri. I went on the second one to Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City was my aha moment, which I've learned to say aha moments from Leadership Greater Topeka, which I did in 2001. And there was a great mayor of Oklahoma City. And the city passed a 1-cent sales tax to raise about $300 million to recruit a company. Think about that, a 1-cent sales tax back in 1988 or 1990 to recruit one company, give them $300 million. United Airlines, for their facility to build and repair planes. 5,000 jobs, great jobs. It came down to Indianapolis and Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City lost. And being the great mayor that he was, He went to United and met with the president and CEO and said, not mad, not upset, want to get better. Exactly what we tell our kids. Everything we tell our kids is, all right, you lost. How are we going to do better next time? How do we get better? He said, what can I do? How do I get better? He said, it wasn't, you guys had the best package. You had the best incentives. You did everything right. You were wonderful. But when push came to shove and we lobbied all of our, we asked all of our employees, where do you want to live? Nobody wanted to live in Oklahoma City. So you can have the best packages, you can have the best money, you can have the best incentives, but if people don't choose to live in your community, who cares? Quality of life is what matters. Now, if you go to Oklahoma City right now and look at their downtown, it's a shocking change. So in 1992, 93, they had a very dedicated group of small people that said, we got to change this. And this was I have a lot of phrases I learned from Oklahoma City. One, the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. It's a lot easier to throw a rock than it is to catch a rock. When you try to make a change, people are going to throw rocks at you. You have a lot of rocks thrown your way. It's a lot easier to throw them than it is to catch them. Quality of life matters. It's what, back in my first tour, these things weren't around. You couldn't, the power that's right here is amazing. People can work anywhere. People can work anywhere now. Take your computer, go work. We need to recruit people based on where they want to live, what they want to do. We want to create environments where Jeff's and my kids went to school together. We want our kids to come back here. Why? Because they can work here and love being here. So for me, quality of life is economic development. Quality of life is the only way we really compete. We have great jobs. We need to recruit people. All we hear about, we're at 3.9% in unemployment. How do we recruit more people? We need our jobs. We need Federal Home Bank to have people. We need Mars to have people. We need to recruit people. We recruit them through quality of life. Quality of place, quality of life is how we grow our economy, how we grow our city. So I've only been involved in this for about 15 years, trying to get this going this way. We're making great progress. The Momentum 22 is awesome. The partnership is awesome. The people here are very positive about trying to make things happen. But quality of life is quality of place, and that is economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Christy Rocker, to be followed by Joseph Ledbetter.
Hi there, my name's Christy Rocky, and I'm actually the recruiting manager for Mars Wrigley Confectionery. And I wanted to talk to you guys tonight a little bit about quality of life and how that helps with recruitment efforts within our local community. So as competition for talent becomes increasingly intense, quality of life is that much more important, particularly for recruitment and retention, and especially when we're thinking about millennials as well. About 10 years ago, quality of life probably didn't even hit the top 10 ratings for why a business would choose to come to a local community. However, even since 2016, and as Molly was mentioning earlier, it's actually in the top 3 behind skilled labor and infrastructure. So it's extremely important as we're having conversations with candidates why they should come, not only to work for Mars Wrigley Confectionery, but why they should come and live and work in the Topeka area. So as quality of life in a city is an important deciding factor in where residents and businesses locate, making a city a place where people want to live, and then will also make a place where people want to work or start a business. Talented people tend to gravitate towards those places where they want to live. So in today's mobile society, if we attract people, we'll continue to attract business, hence economic development. We have many exciting initiatives already in place here in Topeka with the revitalization of downtown Topeka and all of the exciting opportunities happening there with the Cyrus Hotel and restaurants and businesses becoming established down in our local community. And as Gabe was mentioning earlier with our top city interns, getting those young, talented people to our communities are only going to be attracted that much more by the quality of place and the quality of life here. And so I just wanted to thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Joseph Ledbetter.
Thank you, governing body. I come here in support of this carry forward item. And the part that particularly interests me is this quality of place for $2 million. One of the things that I have noticed over the years with JEDO budgets, and I've been to a number of these, I've always been concerned about the amount of carry forward money. But what I'm very concerned about is that the money gets back into the community as rapidly and efficiently as possible. Quality of life is incredibly important. You've heard earlier testimony. I agree with these people about what they're saying. I have been serving as the vice chair of the Quality of Place Committee with Momentum 2022. We are talking about infrastructure. We're including quality of life, infrastructure. They're really intertwined. You've got to have good streets to be able to get to work. You've got to have a good highway system and highway connections to create trade and commerce in your community and create jobs. And you need parks and rec for the kids and for the adults. We need the bike trails to be maintained, not broken. Recently I was riding the part of the Shunga, and I was noticing that Shunga trail is now over 20 years old, and there's a lot of broken concrete on it. That doesn't look well. We should be concerned about aesthetics. We should be concerned about our parks and rec being well maintained. We need to be concerned about our roads being well maintained and our highway connections being good and well maintained. So I support this item. I think it's really for discussion purposes for the JEDO body, the governing body, to make some decisions next year about who should get this money, what projects should get this money. And I wouldn't just put it in one project, but you know, that's just a suggestion. But I would say that this is a fair number considering the amount of money that's being carried forward of $17,500,000. And we know some of that's encumbered and already committed to good projects like the East Topeka Learning Center and the 49th Street, which will open up the industrial park and make it completely, it's lacking infrastructure. The very first industrial park is lacking infrastructure, but once this 49th Street is built, you open up another 75 acres on the north side that can be potentially developed. So I support this item. I urge you to at least enter into the discussion about it and allow that discussion for that $2 million to go back into the community. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the public comment on the item. We're on item 8, which is the Go Topeka Cash Carry Forward Agreement. And if you look actually right behind that sheet that has the amounts is the agreement, and the agreement states that our vote tonight permits Go Topeka to carry over $17.5 million. So we're not, in a sense, breaking it down by these amounts. We're giving approval to carry this over. And then these amounts will have to be determined during the next year. So that's the background. Your pleasure. Councilman Emerson.
Ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Of Mrs. Feeney. As a practical matter, if they don't carry this over, they have to find a way to spend $7 million in the next 2 weeks, right? Is that?
Well, I suppose, yes, theoretically, yes.
Okay.
The agreement with Go Topeka allows for this cash carry forward to cover expenses that may come due in the next fiscal year.
So if we would not approve this, they would have to find a way to spend that, whatever isn't encumbered, before the end of the year, correct?
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's never come up before, and I've never really thought about it.
I know this great local construction company who can do $7 million. No. That's a joke.
We didn't hear that.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions?
I'll move to approve the cash carry forward.
Okay. Commissioner Bueller has moved to approve the cash carry forward, and Councilwoman De La Isla has second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
We have 5 yes.
5 having voted yes, the carryover is passed, is complete. That completes the 2 action items. Now, council usually, board members, usually we take a break about 8 o'clock. We have 2 more items on the agenda. If you want to keep going, we will do that. Okay, we're ready for item 9, discussion item, if the clerk would read.
9 is the East Topeka Learning Center project update.
And approaching it is Glenda Du Bois. Congratulations on your new position.
Well, thank you.
And you're here in another light.
Yes, I am. I am here to give an update on the East Topeka Learning Center project, but thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You have item number 9 in your packet, and so I would like to just begin with talk with you about the design process, to kind of give you an update of where we are with that. We have hosted 2 community events and the purpose of that has really been to obtain design input and ideas and increase awareness from the members of the community. We had a community cookout at the site on September 30th, and we had over 140 people who attended. We also had a project design open house that was hosted at the Hillcrest Community Center, and that was on October 16th, and we had over 50 people who actually attended that event. The bid for the general contractors, we will host a pre-bid informational meeting in mid-December for both general and subcontractors. And the purpose of that meeting will be to provide an overview of the scope of the work, the design of the building, and also receive questions and answers. The real purpose, or one of the purposes of that particular meeting, pre-informational meeting, is also to encourage supplier diversity. Drawings and specs of the building will be out early in January 2018, and bids will be expected to be back in by the end of January 2018. Permitting will occur early in February of 2018, and that will actually depend upon when the contract is in place and working through any city reviews and comments. So that's kind of where we are as far as the design process is concerned. I'm sure you've heard and we've reported that we would be having the market study, and that market study has been completed, and we think very successfully. We had over 979 total respondents in the 6605 and the 07 zip codes and in Shawnee County, for a total of Shawnee County. All data that was taken during that survey has been incorporated into a final research report. And from Ketchum, they have a few highlights that I'd just like to share with you that they really observed from the market study. Nearly 1 in 3, which is about 28% of the residents surveyed, already heard about the East Topeka Learning Center project before being informed about it in the survey. And so that's a number that we're proud of, because we really at least wanted to be sure that people were hearing about it. After reading a paragraph, being read a paragraph about the project and the community educational campus, at least 39% of the respondents surveyed said they would be interested themselves in taking a course at the new campus. So we have people who are aware of it and people who are also interested in taking and participating in it. The market study also included focus groups. And it was a diverse group of participants, and it had great open discussions. A common theme that was heard among the groups was that the hope that this project would bring a permanent educational fixture to the community. We all know, and it was evident still in the focus groups, that there is some skepticism among the people in this area based on the efforts that have fallen through in the past that's for this particular area. But there's also optimism and excitement about the new opportunities. There were community interviews, and these community interviews consisted of leadership representation from churches, from educational institutions, local governments, and also from neighborhood organizations. The interviewees were selected based on recommendations by the task force, and all recommended individuals were contacted at least twice with an opportunity to participate, and they received great participation. This data that was received from the market study has been incorporated into a final research project, and the draft will be presented to the task force on Friday. As far as expenditures to date, You have that shown in your packet, with the bottom number there being close to $345,000. The project also is on schedule to be completed in November of 2018. We wanted to also make you aware of the current status of the new market credits that you're aware of that's part of this project. The new market credits status at this point is the Columbia Capitol has communicated that the House of Representatives, and I know we're hearing a lot about that, have approved tax bill that the House of Representatives has approved that the tax bill, we want to make sure that's clear, would eliminate the new market tax credits after 2017 round, but the Senate bill maintains the program. So when the bill head for reconciliation with the conference committee, the fate of the program is still unclear for this year's round until this year's round is announced. But we want you to know that the East Topeka Learning Center Task Force is following this narrative and will keep apprised of updates that could affect the project. So that particular part of it, does that make sense? Having questions about that? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions about any other part of the update?
Questions?
Yes.
Councilman
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Boyd, and I am sorry, I did look through this last week, but I missed this statement here. The last statement was permitting will occur early February 2018, depending on when the contract is in place, and we're working through city review comments. I guess my concern is when I read that, have the plans not been reviewed yet and okayed by the city? Is that correct?
The final plans have not.
I guess my
Because the
question.
drawing and the specs began in early January 2018.
In 2017.
2017.
The drawing and the specs will be out early, beginning early January 2018.
Right, but they're not final, so it won't be a final design that people are bidding on, I guess, is my question. Is that correct?
I think Barbara's coming up.
Yes.
Gonna-
Yes.
They'll be out for bid for the construction companies to bid that process.
Yes.
So that should have been moved forward with our architects, yes, already.
And they are final plans?
Yeah, that's just they're finalizing those as, right now. We have actually one more meeting this month to confirm those.
Because what gave me pause there was,
I think they meant related to comments, just in terms of some final things. I was pulling that directly from our architect's notes.
okay, I would,
I'm thinking it's just to receive input
okay.
or questions or concerns.
So it's not permitting review, like,
Not traditional, no.
okay.
I don't believe so.
I
can find, they've done all of that earlier
That'd be
in
great.
terms of those.
I mean, as a contractor, we love these kind of things because we bid on one set of things and then when there's a change, frankly, it's an opportunity for us, you can make more money on these things with changes. So I would just highly advise even if you have to delay the bid date.
Okay. I will double check and
Make sure
I
you have
can get that
everything you
answer
can
for you.
pinned down. Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Very
Councilman
quickly,
Martin.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
What did the market survey tell us about course demand and participation?
I think that most of that we will hear on Friday at our at the report they will make to the task force.
Can you give us a sneak peek?
Yeah, I don't
think we have all of that at this point to share. Okay. We have not actually received that. That's the purpose of the report out on Friday to the task force.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other questions?
That would be front and center.
Seeing none, thank you. Thank you very much.
I do want to share also that beginning the first of the year that I will be transitioning into the position of past president on the task force, and Lalo Munoz will be the chair, and Pastor Marcus Clark has agreed to serve as the co-chair.
Thank you
very much.
Next is item 10, discussion, broadband initiative update. Gina.
Good evening. This is not the first time I've been last on the agenda, so I have come to believe that you like to save the best for last.
Nothing personal.
That's how I view it. I've been listening very intently to the conversations preceding this, and just to make a point that as we talk about quality of place, quality of life, and the importance of infrastructure in that broadband should be considered part of the infrastructure. So just to put in a word on that. So I'm Gina Millsap. I'm the CEO of the library. I am the only representative of the project team here this evening, I believe. I've checked around. But just as a reminder, this is a cross-organizational project team appointed by the mayor and Commissioner Bueller. And that includes our team leader, Mark Biswell, who is the Director of Information Technology for the City of Topeka, Pat Oblander, who's Information Technology Director for Shawnee County, Patrick Clear, who's the Coordinator of Technology for Auburn Washburn Schools, and Barbara Stapleton, Vice President of Workforce Development and Education, who's serving in an ad hoc capacity for Go Topeka, because the money for this does reside in the Go Topeka budget, as you recall. So you have a report for our fourth quarter action steps in your packet. We're working weekly with the consultants from Tilson to review the project actions and the timeline and to discuss how we communicate the results of the consultants' work without being too technical and remaining focused on outcomes. So the good news is we're on schedule, and we're focused on completing all the action steps in preparation for delivering a report to this body at its February board meeting, if you decide to approve that on your agenda. So since our last report, there are 2 key actions that have been accomplished, and that will ultimately result in our ability to issue a request for information and ultimately a request for proposal to telecommunications service providers. And I'm always mindful, Commissioner Archer, of your question, what are the taxpayers getting for their money? So if I have not answered that question by the end of this, please remind me of that. Okay. I just wanted to beat you to the punch. The 2 key items that have been accomplished in this phase are an economic feasibility study first, and that was part of your review. Tilson is conducting a peer review of the work done to answer the question, is gigabit broadband economically feasible in our community? Now, you will recall that that was originally posed in our community broadband planning process in 2014 that was conducted under the direction of the Kansas Department of Commerce. So it's done by a company called CostQuest using a model called the Gigabit Cities Model. This is really becoming an industry standard. Our contract with Tilson includes the licensing that provides full access to this model so that they can, in effect, check the numbers, and that's what they have done. So the answer to the question is yes, provisionally, with certain conditions and assumptions, and that include the assumption of a public-private partnership model. The second action step is an economic impact study. We've also received the report from Camoin Associates that our consultant contracted with for this part of the project. They have conducted a peer review, again, of the 2014 Kansas Department of Commerce Economic Impact Study, which answers the question, how will such a broadband network build and deployment add to the local economy in terms of employment, earnings, and output? I have more detail on that, which I'm happy to provide, but I will say this. The original projections that we saw in the 2014 report have been lowered a bit, a few percentage points. We're very comfortable with that. We think they're more conservative and they're more sustainable in terms of what they would contribute to overall gross the GDP. So, and I have the exact figures if you want them, but you will also be hearing that in the final report as well. These studies and the resulting data are essential for decision making. But I think the most exciting part of this process now is the research and review of possibilities for the deployment of broadband for rural areas and in areas of our community that have traditionally not had access to full capacity broadband. The consultants are taking us through a review process that looks at fiber to the premise versus wireless technology options. Mobile wireless is not as robust or high capacity as wired, but wireless technology has seen some enormous improvements in the 3 years since we've been considering a community-wide plan for access to broadband. For instance, one of the models they're proposing or scenarios they're proposing would be a pole-based, like literally 80-foot pole-based radio transmission model instead of tower-based, which is significantly less costly, but also allows you to provide a lot of coverage at a lesser cost. So I know this is kind of geeky stuff, but I'm telling you, every time I'm on the phone call with these guys, I'm excited about the options that we may have to really address access in rural areas where we didn't have them before. So overall, I think I speak for the project team that we are very pleased with the professionalism and expertise of Tilson, that they're hitting all their deadlines on deliverables. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank
Commissioner
you.
Archer, did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. That completes our discussion items. We have public comment. First person to speak is Kurt Kuda, to be followed by Scott Griffith.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you again for all of you for your service. And it's been an eventful year for all of us, and one of transition and probably just as many remaining questions than answers. And I am a member of Go Topeka's board. I served on the steering committee along with many other people in this room. And I'm presently on the implementation committee along with many other people in this room. And during all these processes, I can guarantee you that there's a lot of questions being asked. We're trying to seek clarity, we're trying to seek definition. And so when you all are up here asking questions, I'm kind of sitting back just going, well, that's just a continuation of, I think, what a lot of us are doing. And I think back to one of the sessions we had in our steering committee, and we're trying to define what economic development is. And our consultant from Georgia, and I'm not going to try to use the Southern accent because I do a terrible job of it, but he finally comes out and goes, don't you all see, it's for the retention of the talent you have and the attraction for the talent you need to grow your community. That's where economic development is today and where it's going. And for someone that has been involved in various economic development organizations for 15 to 20 years, it started off with shovels and dirt and walls and jobs, right? That's a lot easier. It's tangible. You can count it. You know, you can come up with the dollars on it. What we're going to be having to talk about and have more questions, and I'm going to tell you something you probably already know. There's going to be more questions when some of these things come forward, and we should have them. And we might not always like the answer, right? But I think we need to have that because the definition of economic development does need our whole community behind it. So again, thank you for your service. Thank you for the questions. There's going to be more to come. But I do think in the end it'll be worthwhile.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Scott Griffith, to be followed by Marge Arns.
Kurt did a great job.
Thank you, Kurt. Marge Arns.
Try to be faster than last time. Thank you all very much. This is some solutions I'm looking for. I propose that the city and county meet as a body before the public at least once a month to discuss the meaning, the justice, and the costs of economic incentives that you support. The strengthening of the relationships between our city and county officials by more frequent structured gatherings could enhance the public's voice in the collection and expenditure of our monies. It may help also with our understanding of the meaning of economic development. I propose that each of our elected officials do a self-audit regarding the number of hours they spend and the number of contacts they have with their economic development contractor and its parent body. Then compare that with their contacts with those who pay beyond their means for sales taxes, even on food, requiring them in the end to accept donations to survive? Do all of you even respond to emails and phone calls from your constituents? Yes. Then hire 1 or 2 public servants to assure transparency and public education about publicly funded incentives to businesses, oversee the expenditures of contracted funds, the separation of personnel, and the lobbying of the contractor and its parent on the public agenda. By doing so, you strengthen yourselves and dispel appearances of manipulation or corruption. You may be attracted to big money and its power, but your first obligation is to your people. Do not allow a developer to take away yours, our declining tax base. Do not react to the stress of decisions made outside of your control, corporate failings or directions, government downsizing. Many cities understand that incentives cannot buy those external decisions and therefore do not even offer them. Do not head to the casino and gamble away more assets. Instead, like an under-organized family, gather together, get some therapy, strengthen your own relationships for the good of us all, and plan to protect what we have. Our well-functioning local governments can stabilize the community's safety and health. They and our prized educational institutions, including that incredible public library, and our imaginative transit organizations, give us our real economic future. Keep to values of public service and justice for all the people. That is why you are here tonight. Plan together how you want to work for the common good. Discipline yourselves with integrated, comprehensive planning or plan to fail. Economic development should be ethically driven and under the ordination of the needs of the community for which you plan, not the reverse. Thank you for your service as our democratically elected representatives. Please expect more of yourselves in coming together more often for the public's good by assuring that the public understand public money incentives, by integrating your plans and overseeing the tax monies for all the people of our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. That completes the agenda for this evening. This is also our fourth quarter event, so next year the torch passes to the county, and the county will be in charge and leading JEDO. I want to thank our city attorney and city clerk who have been here working for part of this. And in addition, of course, this is my last time with the JEDO board, and I think I joined it with Commissioner Archer and Councilwoman Hiller about almost 9 years ago, and Commissioner Scheller. We're sort of Shelley Bueller. We're sort of the old timers, but I'll be leaving. But it's been amazing to see the change that has occurred. I think that in 9 years, from what it was, we had no idea. And I think we can be very confident. We certainly have economic development happening in Topeka and Shawnee County, and it's great to be a part of it, and wish you all well.
I'd like to